Hi everyone, it's Paola. Welcome back to my art and graphic design channel. I do art and graphic design here. So if you like that, subscribe and also ring the bell. Even if you are already subscribed, ring the bell so you can get notified when I upload because YouTube never suggests me. I swear they got beef with me or something. So ring the bell and you'll be notified when I upload and we can have fun together. Okay, so today's video, I have this book right here, Typographic Systems. I thought we'd discuss grid systems and actually creating layouts. So this book is my go-to. I know it's specifically about typography, but that really is the main focus of editorial layouts. What you really need to know is more about the type aspects, and then you can start adding in all different types of design. But I also don't have like the Grids book, and that's like a $70 book, and I just can't do that right now. So this is the book I have. But it's really, really helpful. It goes through lots of different types of grids and setting up your designs, and it helps you kind of do exercises as well to practice those things. So I'm gonna go through all the different types, and then after that I'm going to use one of these systems and set up an editorial layout in Adobe Indesign. So let's do all that, because by the end of this video, you'll be a grid expert. So I'd like to actually go through this book. It is by Kimberly Elam, in case you were wondering. This is the book itself. But I'd like to go through it because I do feel like looking through physical media and having examples that way can really help your design on the computer later. So I love a good physical resource like a book. So I just want to show you how it's set up. The first one in this book is the axial system. So axial is as it sounds. It's about designing on two sides of a single axis. And you can really make that up. I love that I can have this physical page on the book to see everything and kind of lay it out how this works. It just really helps me personally, so hopefully it'll help you. But yeah, I love having this little page. So it just really lays out the types of axial grids you can do, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So I feel like we can just kind of roll through these and you can just learn the basis of editorial design and laying out things. The second is the radial system, and that's designing from a central point of focus. And again, in this book, it's focusing on type, but I think it really does apply to full editorials later, because once you have a grid system set up, you can do it physically, like on your design file. You can set up that grid, but you can also just use the terms and the ideas and kind of set up your own design from here. And I feel like all of this just really informs the next thing you're gonna do. The next one is the dilatational system. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But basically it's designing on a singular path. I love the example of this one because it really does show like very funky type. And I think that's what's fun about setting up these types of grids, is that they still work on a grid system, but you can just do so much and explore so much within your design. There's a lot of curves, there's a lot of spirals, there's a lot of fun in this, and I don't think you see this as commonly, but it's a great thing to practice, especially charrettes. If you don't know what charrettes are, that's very small thumbnails, and just you do quick design. It's kind of like an exercise in design. So if you challenge yourself to do a charrette like this, you could say, okay, make 5 with the dilatational grid system and some random type. Doesn't even need to be anything, it could just be filler type, and just make different layouts kind of on a timer. You could even do like a 5-minute timer, 10-minute timer, and just do quick design exercises that way. That's such a great way to start really learning and getting into your head like the different grid systems and how you can explore them in different ways. Next is the random system, and yes, it's as it sounds, it's random, and that would be a fun exercise to do as well. It's all about spontaneous design, but I love that it's still adheres to a grid in a way, and I just love that design can be so open and free and you don't have to stick to really rigid rules in design. I love that about it, and I love that we can just explore and have fun, especially on this channel, because I'm not the one to say this way of design is right and this way of design is wrong and you can't do it. Do everything. I always say, make the ugliest thing you've ever made and then make the best. Who cares? Do whatever you want. And I think random design fitting within a grid system in this book really proves it, that you can just have fun and be spontaneous. Next is the grid system. So this is specifically working on a x-axis and a y-axis and making a grid. And I think this page is really the most helpful when we're talking about setting up grids in general for editorial layout. So this is going to be the most helpful for you here. It really breaks it down and it shows the different aspects of where you can put imagery and heading and like subheading and body text. And I just think it's a really great explanation page, especially if you're wanting to do more magazine style layout or you're looking into doing book design. You know, you have to know these aspects of layout at least to help you along the way. Within the grid system, I think it really becomes apparent how hierarchy can really play an important role here, especially with type, but then utilizing image as well. So hierarchy is important with all of these that I've shown so far. And what I mean by that is basically that bigger things can draw attention first, smaller things bring attention last, and just playing around with different sizes and positions on page, playing around with negative space, that all creates a visual hierarchy that your eye will follow as the viewer. Definitely this will help you with that, like these exercises and creating these types of layouts and stuff, working with different sizes, that's going to help you figure out what visual hierarchy looks like for you. And in your design work, it is an exploratory process. Like I've said, it's so much fun. You don't have to be really rigid with it, as I always say. But yeah, this one will definitely help you like figure that out. So definitely like screenshot or anything with this page. Next is the transitional system, and that kind of plays off of the first one with a single axis. It's more about shifting that axis and kind of shifting along a design, and it kind of creates movement within your layout. And the last one is the modular system. So that would be designing within standardized units, and I actually love this, and I really do think that the modular system is very on trend right now from what I've seen in design online and all of that. When I look at these pages, I think that it does look very modern, and some of the stuff in this book does look like a bit outdated, but what's going on here is very, very trendy in my opinion, and very on the nose with the design field now. So modular design is probably something that you can focus on if you want to make a layout that looks like that. It's very much working within a system. But that is all of the systems within this book. Editing me popping in to say, no, it's not. Completely forgot to record the last one. Here it is, the bilateral system. I personally do not like using grids, so that's why I wanted to make this video, because I'm always challenging myself as well. I just kind of like to go with the flow. I'm a go with the flow person, but I know it's important, especially when you're working on like a page or a magazine type of layout, or you really need a lot of text and image working together. Of course, you have to set up a grid. I also just do kind of like a mental grid when I do these layouts and editorial things, and I kind of just do like columns, you know, there's the 2-column grid, 3-column grid. That's all kind of important in design as well, just working in columns, but I think that explained it in the grid one of this one. We are going to create now, and we're going to design something using some of these tools and the things we have learned, and I can kind of visually show you how to set up a grid and use it in your design work. Okay, so for this, I'm using Adobe Indesign, and here I am setting up my file. I'm using A4, and I'm just picking the measurements I use. I usually use inches or millimeters, and I'm just setting up where I want my margins and where I want my bleed. So in print design, bleed is pretty important in case something goes off the edge of the page, like an image, something like that, and this is what the file looks like. So now, if you're wanting to set up a grid, all you have to do is click on InDesign and go into Grids. This is where you will set up your document grid. You can change the color, and you can change the spacing and what size you want for your grid. And it's pretty self-explanatory, you just kind of have to play around with it. So here I just set it up, and then if you can't see it, you have to go to View and go down to Grids and Guides, and then click Show Document Grid, and that's how you'll actually see it within the document, and you can go back and hide that whenever you want. But like I've said, I don't really like using that, so I also utilize guides by just dragging them in and placing them to form my own grid type. And I know you can't really see it here, so here is on the screen recording how that looks when I set up a guide. It's pretty easy, you just drag them in and they're in your document. So here I'm just using the frame tool, which then I can bring in photos. So like I said with that bleed, I brought it to the edge of the bleed so that it's off the page. And I've kind of used more than half, kind of 3/4 of the page. But here we're gonna actually be using the axial grid system, so I can showcase a little bit of that. So here I'm setting up the letter forms to go on that axis, and they're all going to be off of that. So that one is right aligned, and then I'm bringing in this one to make it left aligned so that it hugs that axis in the middle line, and just make it all off of that, and then see how that works and interacts with each other just beautifully. I really love the axial grid. So then from there, that axial grid can kind of inform where you put the rest of your designs. So there's still that center line going down, but then you can kind of play around with crossing over that barrier to kind of make it more than halfway across the page. And then you can do text boxes, kind of make them 2-column, because this is split into a 2-column grid system. And just quick tip, when you have a text box and you don't really have anything to fill it with, you can just go to type and hit fill with placeholder text, and that will fill your design so that you can just keep designing away and you don't have to fill it with content. I also like to use this button where I click the extra text and I put it into a separate text box, so then those text boxes are connected. So as you can see, just knowing where that axial grid is can inform the rest of your design, so you can really play around and make it what it is, and I really love this layout. So for the next one, I'm going to be using the grid system that we learned in the book. And here's another screen recording so you can actually see it. Basically just set up something like that, just kind of into sections. So here's where I'm making more of like a magazine cover type of look. Not really cover, but like, I guess with headlines, just so you can see as an example. So here I'm making frames for images to come in, and then I'm also making text boxes. But here I can kind of expand them across just one section, and they can take up 2 sections, but you still stick to that grid and where those guides go. So you like the text will go across 2 sections and the images will stay in 1 section, but then you can kind of play around with that itself and make the images go across 2 sections, 2 or 3, and that can be vertically or horizontally. But because you have that grid set up, it really just helps you kind of make that world and build it out. And I think this is really a fun part of design, especially when you just set that up. So like you can set up a document grid, you can set up your own guides roughly and just stick to that. But here it is in lots of different avenues that you can follow, sticking to one grid. So then from here, we're also playing around with the text and headings as well. So there would be a main heading and a subheading, and I'm just changing the fonts on that to something different. But overall, I only have 2 different fonts and 1 variant of one. So this is how it looks, adding in another image, just using that grid and what we know about it to actually make a final product. And I love how these turned out. I actually put them into a mock-up for the purpose of this video. So this is me putting it into mock-ups. I love how they looked, and I made some pages and I just thought they looked amazing for this and really showcase what we're talking about here. Okay everyone, that was what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. It really helps my videos and my channel when you like and comment, so let me know what you want to see in future videos. I love your suggestions, so let's chat. And if you have any questions about grids, leave them below. Let's talk, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye!